Well, hello and welcome and hello to another exciting edition of Strange Anxiety. It's un poco mas. It is Danny Deals. It's a Saturday. I was basically doing a bunch of work, cleaning, and a bunch of nonsense, and I got bored and decided to make this here video about NIO, ticker symbol NIO. Most of you know this is a Chinese EV company. It's kind of been through the ringer, guys, through that sort of a SPAC, mania. Went up to just, it was down like buck or two, went up to just crazy levels. I don't know, $60 or something like that. And then has come all the way back down to the mid threes, popped back up to $5 there, and then sitting at $4.30 right now. Friday was a very moderate day, just algos completely locked onto the stock. We're going to go over just some news about the stock, kind of what's going on with the chart, what's going on with the short, why there's so little institutional ownership of the stock, and kind of what we can expect going forward. Because the unique thing is EV in valuation terms, you basically have to ramp. It's all about, production numbers. That's how, they tend to value these stocks. So, what's going on, Lisa? How you doing today? Thanks for joining us. Sean with some funny comments there. Anyway, so NIO basically, they had all this promise. They were about to go bankrupt. The Chinese government stepped in. Their thing is battery swap. I mean, that's really their unique selling point. They have a lot of other unique aspects of the company. It's not just about swap. They have a lot going for them, but basically battery swap, you just pull into the swap station, they unscrew the battery, drop the old one out, put a new one in, and it has, all sorts of advantages, not just for NIO and NIO's partners, but also for the consumer, not the least of which you can actually buy the car apart from the battery and then lease the battery as a service and, swap it as a service. So you basically have much less money up front to own an EV. And the other benefit of that is it decouples the battery from the car. We've all seen these things on YouTubers channels, like rich rebuilds and stuff, where the Tesla needs a new battery and it's like $22,000. It's totally insane. And that might be after 5 years. We saw, the other one where there's like the Uber driver and he drove his Tesla for Uber following all the proper, charging protocols and stuff, but he just drove the hell out of the car. And after, I think it was like 115,000 miles or something, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but the battery was dead. And again, it needed a new battery for $20,000. So NIO's battery swap model solves so many problems, and everybody kind of rejected this, not just Elon Musk, but the powers that be at all the major auto and EV players kind of scoffed at this. And now they're all kind of circling back and they're seeing NIO has proved this concept decisively. NIO users use the hell out of battery swap. NIO's covered the entire map of China. Now they're starting to work on Europe, and even with these tariffs, even with the trade war in terms of automotive, I don't think Europe can afford that war. I mean, they need the Chinese market to Mercedes, BMW, Audi, Volkswagen. There's Europe is just not a growth market. China's the growth market, and they have partnerships. I just don't see the war. I think it's inevitable that Chinese EVs are going to flood across Europe and the United States, but that's neither here nor there. You look at NIO, though, they have multiple avenues of expansion. It's not just geographic. They also have one sub-brand, Onvo, coming out September 30th or September 10th. So that's Q3. They're actually getting this done. NIO has a remarkable ability to sort of make new models, get manufacturing done. And I think that's because the Chinese government basically wants NIO to succeed, because they want to own this battery swap standard so they can control the gas station of the future. They can control energy. They can control energy storage. And we haven't even gotten into how well these stations are going to play with the grid. They already have partners for that in Europe. They have partners for that in China. It can not only stabilize the grid, supplement the grid, charge at off-peak times. They just made another partnership with a solar company. So that was, I forget where that news was, but they opened another NIO house in Germany. They just announced a partnership with, I don't know how to say these words, Chechi, Al Cheki, I don't know, but I guess they're the largest like high-tech insurance like clearinghouse sort of online thing in China, and they just partnered with NIO's insurance arm, and they're talking about, again, NIO's Firefly model will be competitive in Europe even with extra tariffs. NIO talking about their smart driving team Envo launch on September 10. They had 3,400. That was down a bit. And then NIO's battery asset operator performs a strategic partnership with electric truck startup New Horizons. So this is really, I think, where battery swap is going to excel. Once you get automation, which NIO's also working on, also the commercial fleet, that's where time is money. These delivery drivers, these last mile drivers, these food delivery drivers, time is money. They even gassing up takes too long. So if they can come in and swap rather than charge these trucks for an hour, even on fast charging, think about the capacity to move this heavy a vehicle. You just pull in, you swap 3 NIO batteries, you're back on the road in like 10 minutes, tops, probably 5 minutes, because most of the time you're just maneuvering your vehicle into line. The swap itself only takes very minimal time. So just exciting news. So many partnerships. If you go back, NIO's partnered for swap stations with some of the biggest oil companies, not just Japan, what am I talking about? Not just Chinese oil companies like Sinopec and others, but also, British and European companies. They see what's coming. They're also partnered with different levels of Chinese governments, like municipal governments, state governments, the national government, in terms of, power grids, factories, all sorts of state-owned enterprises partner with NIO. Other car companies are partnering with NIO. This is very critical, is this NIO-led battery swap alliance. They have, about 6 other nameplates online already, some of which are the biggest, like gas, kind of semi-state-owned car companies in China. That's why I say the government wants to own this standard. NIO is the vehicle they're using, and they're going to push NIO as a company to the forefront. How do you ramp, doing 18, 20,000 cars? Now, how do you get to that 100,000 cars, per month? The answer is these sub brands. You build a more affordable vehicle that's going to, basically it's going to appeal to a lot more people. Then you add in the fact that you don't have to pay for the battery up front. You get a much cooler, nicer vehicle at a much more affordable price point. And it's a status point too, to be in this NIO family. I mean, it's where the earth meets the sky, for God's sake, people. One of the things that's interesting, obviously, you guys know I'm a big SoFi pumper, big SoFi bull, big shill, big turd, big chunky stock monkey, portly prognosticator, sayer of truths, half-truths, untruths, all kinds of things. Bit of a sleuth sayer. I don't even know what that means. Anyway, guys, if you think SoFi's institutional ownership at 44% or something, or, is abysmally low, NIO's institutional ownership is like 16%, is just ridiculously low for a company that I think is doing this well. But they have a lot going against them. I mean, they had a really down period where production fell apart, sort of some of their ambitious plans. They had to sort of, trim them. William Lee wants to do everything all at once, be everything. He's building furniture. He's building these NIO houses. He's like crafting, all this different stuff that just didn't make a lot of sense. They're still coming out with the new NIO phone because they're not building the NIO phone. It's just like another partnership, but it makes sense because as the car becomes just a huge computer and robot, more so than like a gasoline engine, it's just another piece of technology. It just happens to move on wheels and tires. So it makes tons of, just the way that your computer integrates with your phone and probably your television and your smart fridge and all these other things. It's high time the phone and the automobile are integrated. And that's what NIO's doing. NIO's leading the way. NIO has, cutting edge technology. Put call ratio institutional doesn't look good. Institutional ownership does not look good. The only parallel, the reason I was going to, and Bally Gifford just dumped a ton of shares. Tencent dumped some shares. That was part of this deal with the CYVN. This is money coming out of the Middle East. I think Abu Dhabi, if I'm not mistaken, their sovereign wealth fund. But For you SoFi guys, you dudes, you dudettes, you cool kids, you turds, you ne'er-do-wells, remember who the top two owners of SoFi are now. I believe BlackRock might be three, but it's Vanguard and then it's BlackRock. They have tons and tons of shares of SoFi. And if you start to look at these companies that bought in early, bought in too high, I mean, BlackRock has 62 million shares. Their average cost is $10. You know, Vanguard, 766, 38 million shares. You go through State Street, Bally Gifford. Goldman Sachs, 14 million shares. They're probably short long. They usually are. Susquehanna has some kind of option play on this thing, but Goldman Sachs is 14 million shares, average over $16. So HSBC, again, Citadel's short. They're always short everything. Jane Street's probably short also. But anyway, HSBC, again, they have 9 million shares, average of $15. This is a stock that's kind of hit bottom and is about to really start growing, about to ramp their manufacturing. These guys bought at 10. These guys bought at 16. You know, you can buy in the low fours. Is that wise? I don't know. Institutions are certainly not flooding into the stock. I mean, they generally speaking know more than we know. On the other hand, some of the fear of China is irrational. I mean, money moves around the globe. These cars really sell. It's not an illusion. It's not a gimmick. The battery swap stations are real, guys. And other people are catching. I just saw, I think it was CATL partnered with some other car company to explore battery swap. And you know, other companies are doing battery swap with trucks, and one of NIO's partners was in the battery swap business, but they had like 20 swap stations they built over the last 3 years. I think NIO built over 1,000 swap stations last year. I mean, they cover all the major highways in China, all the major roadways. They're basically covering the entire country. So it's going to be a massive investment and a massive race for somebody to catch up with NIO and build a parallel network. It's like if VHS already went out and, you know, you're still coming with Betamax and you're just trying to sell Betamax. You're trying like, oh, we can still do this. It's like everybody threw those away 5 years ago. No. Well, what about Laserdisc? Like that thing's like, you know, the size of a pizza. It's not practical to put that in your phone. I can put it in my phone. Like, anyway, guys, welcome and hello. Hello and welcome. Is anybody here? Not really. Let's see. 14 brave souls. 14 brave souls wanting to go down with this ship. We already said hello to Lise UAE before end of year. What's up, Christopher? How you doing? What's up, Adam? Hello and welcome, good sir. What's up? Don't sub and like, Lisa. Don't even watch. Get the hell out of here. Get some air. What's going on, Mr. Taylor? What's going on, Tortuga de Rio? 10x end of your dreams. Yeah, I mean, guys, 10x is another. I can get into that. I'm going to do a video. People kept messaging me. I actually bought 10x yesterday, believe it or not. When they go down, you're looking, okay, is this thing going to go bankrupt the way GMDA did? I mean, oh, that stock cleaned my clock. But then SMMT, I literally made like an 8 or 9 bagger pretty quick. That was one where, you know, I saw one of the founders. He bought $100 million worth of the stock on the open market. I think it was like 95 cents. The stock had just plummeted on some bad news for their lung cancer drug or something. And, you know, the founder just comes in, fires off, writes $100 million check. I'm like, I got to do some DD quick. So basically that was one where I just, you know, followed in an insider buy just kind of blindly and waited for the pop. And we just had a huge pop on some, data on lung cancer in China basically looked better than the standard of care, you know, extending people's lives. So that went up an insane amount from where I bought it, around $1. And I dumped. I'm going to, you know, I'm not saying I'm going to put all that money back into, you know, NIO or SoFi or any of these stocks, but I have a large, you know, NIO position. And the reason is, swap is going to be part of the ecosystem. The Chinese government is making that very, very clear. They would not, and they just gave them another permit to build another car factory. And apparently they're not giving any of those permits in China because there's too many already. And companies are going bankrupt. They're not able to sell the cars they're building. There's a glut of inventory. So the fact that NIO has this demand, they're ramping sales, they're ramping production, really shows you, I think, the power and USP of battery swap. Anyway, guys, Howard Chambers here from Greece. Greetings from good old California, little Los Angeles. How you doing today, Howard? Good to see you. Good to see you, JW. Selling 3 puts. Took a tax harvesting on his longs. Yeah, he's making chess moves. He's not just a buy and hold like a lemming. Big pop on 10x. And it's so hard to say because what's going to make 10x pop, Tortuga? Is it going to be, some type of data? That trial is going to go pretty quick. I mean, it's not a long duration. It's not a long, basically it's a 6-minute walking test or whatever it is. So it's a very, very simple trial. They already have all the data. They already know it works. I mean, this drug was used by Orion for many years, decades in Europe. They sold a ton of it. Or not, it wasn't a huge drug, but, hundreds of millions of dollars, couple hundred million every single year. I mean, 10x has no debt. They have minimal cash, but the market cap is what, like under $10 million? I mean, Zach's analysis said each drug was worth 300 million or so just a year or two ago. But management, hired Roth again. Like Roth made the worst deal I've ever seen. And management's like, well, let's hire them again. Let's do another one of those. Like, so they've wiped out shareholders twice with these deals. I have to believe, somebody's accumulating for a pop or to take it private or to bankrupt it or to, twist it up into a, I don't know. It's just one of those things where there is no alternative to that drug. It has so much market potential. The P3 is a layup. Why can't they get any funding to do that phase 3 trial? It just doesn't make any sense to me at a reasonable, rate. I guess interest rates are high or, their team of, physicians they have is like really prominent, really well known. They should be able to get something done and get that drug to market, but obviously they're not doing it. So there's something that's escaping me there, Tortuga. 3x $5 leaps 2026, same price, $100 a share. Yeah, Howard's kind of timing this thing in the sense of where it's going, when it's going. I think he might be onto something there because this stock is not just going to go crazy because they're not going to find a cure for cancer. It's not that kind of thing. They're going to ramp production. You have to wait for this sub brand to come out, see how that does. Probably in a year's time, we're going to see, is the market cozying up to Onvo? Is the Chinese public wanting to buy Onvo, wanting to do battery swap in mass? If those battery swap stations get busy, get overwhelmed, that becomes just this massive source of revenue. NIO's going to be off to the races. And by that time, they're probably going to have, many more partners. I'm very surprised they don't have a prominent European partner. People have noted that they've talked to executives from Mercedes and stuff, but they've also talked to executives. I think the CEO of BYD was there. It's just because these guys talk. I know the guy from XPeng came, or Lee, and gave William Lee one of those people mover things, those Lee Auto cars, like minivans that nobody wants to buy. I think that was their first PE vehicle, pure EV vehicle, and absolutely nobody wants that horrendous pile of shit. So at least NIO makes vehicles that are actually appealing and people want, and that's obviously a critical component of an EV company. But this battery swap is going to be very much their unique selling point. And one of the things, the short interest is only 13%, but I'll point out that's almost as high as the institutional ownership. So it becomes far, far more significant because there's kind of no push-pull there on the other side. Institutional ownership of 50% would stabilize things, but with a fairly significant short, almost no institutional ownership, emotional returders, options turders, swing turders, day turders of every description, essentially trading in and out of the stock like hamsters on crack, losing all their money, then engaging in some type of a basement dry jerk with their tiers or whatever they have planned. It's not pretty, folks. This just hasn't been pretty. It's been absolutely ugly price action. The stock has just crashed down to nothing. They're ringing it out. A lot of people got excited. Production was up over 5,000 there when we kind of fallen back to that 3,500 level. But, demand hasn't been that high. There was some festival again last month. There's fucking festivals that slow down demand constantly in China, or holidays, this and that. They take things seriously. Like they take a couple weeks off and do a festival. It's not like us where you just, let's go over to Uncle Lou's and have us a dry turkey, maybe get drunk on some Coors Lights, watch a football game, then back to work at the shit mill tomorrow. That's not how Chinese do it. You know, they come together. I don't know what the fuck goes on in China. I don't know any more about that than Bobo knows about how Sasquatch families behave, you know, when they're behind on their mortgage. Like, you know, when Squatches are behind on a mortgage or a bill, what they do is they come together, and they pass the hat, and they pool money, and they're able to make up that resource as a community. This area is really squatchy. So anyway, I don't know enough about Bobo, but so I wrote some silly nonsense on my white chart. I have it's just interesting if you look at the map of where NIO is, San Jose, California, that's where they're doing FSD, basically their development. They're all over China, Beijing, Hefei, I'm always in Shenzhen, Hangzhou, Shanghai, Nanjing. They're everywhere. And then Europe, they actually have in Budapest a factory that makes their battery swap stations. They're talking about once they can reach production around 100,000 units per month, that kind of demand, that kind of sales, they'll set up manufacturing in Europe. But that's quite a ways off. I mean, they have a lot of capacity in China. They just got approval to build another large factory there. So they build factories in different places for their sub-brands, kind of keep those businesses somewhat separate. But again, just reshuffled their team, full self-driving, moving toward end-to-end solutions for that large language model, that Tesla model. Everybody's abandoning that sort of if-then strict code in favor of basically like machine learning and large language models that can almost think for themselves. So, you know, NIO not only has eyes on expansion in terms of trucks, in terms of solar, in terms of phone, in terms of all these other things within China, but they're also eyeing worldwide expansion, particularly with an eye toward Europe and that Firefly sub-brand coming out. Just talking about like why this makes so much sense in China. There's many people who just can't charge at home. They don't have, you know, charging facility, and they also can't charge at work. You're basically ass out of luck, up shit creek, like Eugene Levy. So what do? Battery swap is a perfect solution. I think at a certain point, swap is going to get some type of mandates from some municipalities in China, and the stock's going to go absolutely insane. I think people in China have had rat holes buying up these shares, accumulating these shares down the 3s and 4s. And I think they're going to make some type of regulatory move to pump this stock, and it's all a big scam. They probably won't do that while there's so many retarders in the stock, but why is institutional ownership so low? I just believe like friends of the Communist Party might be buying up these shares for a pump. Do I know that? Of course I don't. I don't know anything. But lower initial cost, also grid stabilization, supplementation, spread of swap. I don't know what the speed of swap. It's like 4 minutes now, going toward 3 minutes. These Gen 4, they just made their Gen 4 battery swap stations live. That's the first swap station that's going to handle multiple brands. And I believe it's also equipped to handle the Onvo sub-brand. I think actually Onvo can use any station. I might be wrong about that. This is the critical thing: battery conditioning, maximizing the lifespan, and recycling. So many people don't take care of their batteries. These Tesla batteries, other EV batteries. You see these Nissan Leafs for sale. These Nissan Leaf EVs for sale. They're like $2,000, because they need a new battery, because it's like a golf cart and it'll only go 10 miles, and nobody wants to buy it. Nobody can afford. You're not going to put, a $10,000 battery into a vehicle that's only worth $2,500. So it's just basically a brick. It just doesn't make any sense. If that was a NIO, that you could just go right down to the corner and get a brand new fresh battery swapped into that, 15-year-old Nissan Leaf, no problem. But it's not a NIO. It's fucking Nissan Leaf. So right here, partner. So anyway, partners, swap station, government, energy giants, oil giants, municipalities. They have other partners. They just have other chargings. They're basically reciprocal swap networks. You guys can read all this stuff on CNEV Post. That's where I lift all my information from. A deal that I think is very important that they just made was with a solar company. They're basically going to power these swap stations through solar and charge the batteries with solar power. So once you pay for the solar, the energy becomes much cheaper, I think, or discounted, free. Obviously, China owns a solar power, market too. They make all the panels over there. They make them cheap. It's, another thing where they said the government's, sort of illegally subsidizing all this through trade rules and all that. But be that as it may, reality's a reality scoreboard. They're leading in these industries. So I think solar swap stations represent a money tree, basically scenario. You're just printing money. You're charging these batteries with the sun, and you're swapping them out. You own the gas station, you own the standard, you own the battery, you own the structure, you're licensing all this stuff, you're printing money. And this company right now is what, like a $10 billion market cap? I mean, okay, $9 billion market cap. I mean, Tesla's what, like 600 billion? And I know Tesla sells a lot more cars, they're making money, all those types of things, but if this thing takes off, if battery swap gets mandated, if this battery swap alliance continues to grow and add major players, NIO is going to be a player in the EV space once it all shakes out and you see the bankruptcies and consolidations. And again, they're working on this navigate on autopilot, FSD, large, and they've just sort of reshuffled things to take on the end-to-end large language model. But they have 500,000 cars and I believe 1 billion kilometers of data. So they have a significant amount of data, and there's just this ring of partners, everybody wanting to kiss the ring, everybody wanting to sniff the boxers of William Li after they scoffed at this technology, 8-9 years ago. I think this company was founded in 2013, I believe. They almost went bankrupt and they were sort of bailed out by one of the state governments because I think China wanted this battery swap thing to keep going. But oil companies, solar companies, governments of all levels, I don't know what that says, car companies, phone companies, technology companies. So NIO has a lot going on, maybe a little bit too much, but I just think this company is really on to something. I think their battery swap network is second to none. They're too far ahead. And this technology has a role to play. It's fast charging going to have a role to play, to be sure. I mean, it's not like NIO is going to put Tesla and BYD out of business. Let's not be ridiculous. But at a $9 billion valuation, they've just killed this stock, and with good reason. I mean, they were off. They weren't manufacturing a lot of cars. They were doing too much, too fast. They were spread way too thin, spending way too much money. People are like, hey, this is ridiculous. You're spending so much money on R&D. You're just burning. Well, think about it. You have to build the foundation for a company like this. You have to build the battery swap network. It costs a lot of money. You have to get all these models ready to go. You have to build the factories. They bought their factories, from JAC. So they have their own factories now. They're licensed. They're doing all the engineering on 2 sub-brands while pushing out FSD. They had a lot going on. But I think they're coming out the other side. They got a much needed cash infusion from the Middle East. Will they need to raise more money? Probably, unless they're able to really improve those margins extremely quickly and, stop the bleeding. Time will tell. Management's saying they learned those lessons. They're moving rapidly to improve the margins, moving rapidly to stem those losses. We just have to give them a few more ERs and see what happens. But it's not enough just to look at manufacturing. You have to look at, how you're moving toward making money on those units and how you're going to make money once your units are increasing. But basically, they're saying the sub-brand will be profitable at a certain point. It'll be contribution profitable, once they're over 100,000 units. I don't know. It's hard to say how they're, predicting all that before they build anything. But I know, obviously, predicting these things, estimating is somewhat of an art, somewhat of a science, somewhat bullshit. So it's just one of those things. But I don't know what else I wrote up here. Pretty much nothing, guys. I think that was really all I had. Let's see if there's any interesting news. As I noted, institutional ownership at 16%. Fisher Asset Management increases position. Average recommendation of hold. Yeah, they reshuffled Xpeng too. We have all these partnerships. 755, I guess, the average price target, which represents a huge amount of upside, but it's not too exciting if you've been in the stock since like 40. So they announced the second generation NIO phone, 4th generation charging swap or charging station actually went live. The other thing that was interesting is NIO got approved to test FSD on the road. I think they're one of like 10 companies in China that got approval. I think they were approved for level 2, but they have an eye toward level 3. And again, they're just doing this transition to the end-to-end sort of Tesla model of FSD that everybody's acknowledging is definitely the future. And Tesla's very much ahead in that. There's just no doubt that this new, FSD is pretty much amazing. But will it clear regulatory hurdles and have like robo-taxi and stuff on the road? NIO's very, very much moving toward a robo-taxi model also. So many companies are in China. Like that's very sort of, tenuous here in America, but they're moving rapidly in that direction in China. So China's the center of EV, and I think NIO's going to be there at the end. Guys, it's Range Anxiety, Strange Anxiety. The stock is NIO. Ticker symbol is NIO. Your host is Danny Deals, the Chunky Stock Monkey, your portly prognosticator, your sayer of things, doer of stuff. Thanks for watching. Oh, Billy Jack is here. Our favorite guy, Billy Jack. Coming out of Texarkana. Don't mess with Billy Jack. Me and a rattlesnake. No, Billy Jack's a nice guy. Let's see. Thanks a lot, Tortuga. Appreciate you guys. I'll go back and check out some of your comments later. Not really very many comments because there's only 16 people watching this. Yeah, I wouldn't mind owning one or two. Yeah, I mean, exactly, Billy Jack. This thing is gonna go. This thing is gonna go. People use the hell out of it. I think they did like 70 million swaps in a month. Only like 500,000. I don't even know if that math works, but it was essentially like every single NIO in existence is swapping on average once a week. So it is the gas station, and almost everybody who buys NIO does swap. Very few do charging. People use the hell out of NIO's charging piles, but most of them are not NIO cars. So I think NIO is a really exciting opportunity. I think it's extremely undervalued, but it's also hugely risky. There's no institutional ownership. There's a short, and it's just absolutely fraught with risk because there's going to be bankruptcy. There's going to be consolidation. But I think NIO's unique selling point keeps us away for an 80. That's what you got to do, Darren. I mean, just because a stock was a bad deal at $50 doesn't mean it's a bad deal at $4. Like, that's what I'm saying. Hey, you want to buy my piece of shit Toyota Corolla? I'm like, how much you want for it? Like $100,000. Like, no, because I could buy a brand new. I'm like, well, how about $1,500? You're like, okay, now we're talking. Like, maybe I don't want the Toyota Corolla. Maybe I do. But the point is, price matters. Like, you can't just say NIO's garbage because it's overpriced at 60 and then maybe it becomes compelling at $3.65. But that's up to you guys. You guys have to do your own DD, make up your own mind. And I want to thank the live studio audience. Oh, everybody's here. Arsenio Hall is here. But guys, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. And hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. I'm probably going to do some other stupid, crappy videos. So, I don't know.